Assalamualaikum and a very good morning to Dr. Shawal and our fellow classmates. So today we'll be presenting the topics of globalizations with the issues of greenhouse gas emission in China.
International cooperation and interdependence between people and countries is defined as globalization by the World Health Organization. The opening of international borders to ever increasing flows of products, service, finance, people and ideas is usually regarded to have two interrelated elements with each change in national and international institutions and policies that support or promote such movements. Also, according to Peterson Institute for International Economics, globalization is a term used to describe the increasing interdependence of the world's economies, culture, and population as a result of cross-border movement of goods and service, technology, and flows of investment, person, and also information. It is characteristic by the increasing interdependence of the world economies, culture, and population. Carbon dioxide and methane are two greenhouse gases that trap heat or long-wave radiation in the atmosphere. And they are also known as greenhouse gases. Because of their existence in the atmosphere, the Earth's surface becomes warmer. Light or shortwave radiation from the sun can easily flow through these gases and the surrounding environment. This radiation is absorbed by the Earth's surface and emit as heat or long-wave radiation as a result of absorption. The molecule structure of greenhouse gases allow them to absorb the heat emitted by the Earth or to trap it in the atmosphere and re-emit it back into the atmosphere. The greenhouse effect is the term used to describe this heat trapping phenomena.
Okay, for the issue we have chosen the greenhouse gas emission in China. So as we know that China is home to almost 20% of the world population, and its greenhouse gas emissions are extremely high due to its massive population, which is mostly because they are highly depending on the coal for their economic growth and urbanization development. China is the world's largest coal generator, responsible for over a quarter of global yearly coal production, and also the world's largest coal consumer, which is responsible for more than 26% of global coal consumption yearly. According to Larsen, in 2019, China's greenhouse gas emissions surpassed the 14 gigaton mark, surpassing around 14 and 93 million metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent, which reflects a 25% growth over the previous 10 years and more than tripling in a year 1990 levels. As a result, China's portions of the total world's emissions of 52 gigatons in 2019 increased to 27%. China's emissions not only exceeded the United States, the world's second largest emitter with 11% of total emissions, but also they exceeded all of the developed countries collectively. According to a research that are conducted by Larsen in 2021, even with China's massive populations of about 1.4 billion people, its emission per capita have stayed far lower than those in the developed countries, and its emission per capita increased to 10.1 tons in 2019, which is nearly triple in the last 20 years. The data gathered from the Global Carbon Atlas in 2019 shows that mining, construction, manufacturing and agriculture industries responsible for 62.5% and 49% of energy and coal consumption in China. However, these data do not include the energy production, where the coal usage were accountable for around 46.5%. Furthermore, development operations are one of the most significant contributors of carbon dioxide emissions. These activities has been enhanced by China's tremendous urbanization expansion, while steel and cement production that have supported China economic development both release a significant quantity of carbon dioxide during process of the production. China policymakers have highlighted that due to economic growth, China will still heavily rely on coal power, and the country will still continuing to build coal-fired power facilities. Furthermore, the Global Energy Monitor report of 2021 shows that China has installed 38.4 gigawatts of coal-fired energy in 2020, which is triple of 11.9 gigawatts installed globally, and currently has 247 gigawatts of coal-fired energy under construction. Nevertheless, China's coal production has accelerated as regions employ coal projects to boost their economy in the aftermath of the COVID-19 outbreak. So because of that, the federal government has lifted a limitation on coal power station licenses and enhanced funding to expand the country's economy, especially for coal-intensive massive projects. So this shows that even though China acknowledging them being the biggest contributor of the world's greenhouse gas emissions and willing to address the issue by implemented limitations and policy in reducing the coal production, but because of the country's economic growth, they are mainly relies on coal energy. It will take time for China in slowing down their coal production, which will accelerate negative impacts that the greenhouse gas emission on the environment.
The first factor of greenhouse gases emission in China is economic development industry. China coal consumption remains stable at roughly 1854.5 million tons of oil each year. For example, it is include that the fact China is rapidly catching up in the burgeoning photovoltaic industry, which is responsible for the creation of new energy. Wood and coal were also the most commonly used primary fuel in the houses, as well as the most commonly used primary cooking fuel. Coal consumption generates more carbon emissions compared to oil and natural gas. Coal consumption is one of the major contributors to CO2 emissions, but one cannot ignore its importance in stimulating economic growth, especially in emerging economies like China. China is fulfilling almost 69% of energy demand from its coal supply. Other than that, China is both the largest consumer and the largest producer of coal in the world. The tremendous amount of fossil fuels used in energy also make China the number one of greenhouse gases emission in the world, and that pose serious environmental concern. The second factor is transportation. The number of motor cars in China is expanding at a rapid pace. It is keeping pace with economic growth at a rate of 15% on an annual average basis. China had around 20.5 million motor vehicles in 1995, with 10 million motorbikes, 54% of which were two-stroke. 1.8 million automobiles and 8.7 million various types of road vehicles, such as light and heavy commercial vehicles. By 2009, China was the world's largest car market, surpassing the United States. There has been significant evidence that vehicle emissions from the consumption of a high amount of fossil fuel are a significant sources of greenhouse gases emission. Other than that, one of the intergovernmental panel on climate change also said that the majority of greenhouse gas emission from transportation are caused by combustion of fossil fuels in our automobiles, truck, ship, train, and planes. More than 90% of the fuel used in transportation is petroleum-based, with gasoline and diesel accounting for the majority of the total. The last factor is agriculture industry. One big sources of greenhouse gases emission from human is livestock farming, which emitted about 8.1 gigaton of carbon dioxide equivalents in 2010, which is about 14.5% of global anthropogenic greenhouse emission. China is responsible for a significant portion of global livestock emission, which are mostly driven by the production of pig for consumption. This is because China is the world's greatest producer and consumer of pork, outpacing the rest of the world by a wide margin. Pork production in China has resulted in a significant increase in greenhouse gases emission during the last few decades. In 2018, the average amount of pork consumed per person in China was 40 kg. China pig farmers had 442 million head of pig slaughtered 701 million pigs and produced 54 mt of pork made by the end of 2016. Because of the high volume of pork produce, pig farming has become a significant source of greenhouse gases emissions in China agriculture.
Okay, next we continue with the impacts of greenhouse gas emissions. So the first impact is that the greenhouse gas emissions will contribute to the increase in global climate change. Since the globalizations with humans increasing fossil fuel consumptions, the level of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere has persisted to increase. This has resulted in larger changes in the global environment, primarily highlighted by climate change, which threaten humanity long-term viability and environment as well. According to National Geographic, human-caused carbon dioxide is the most major contributor to climate change. Its level in the atmosphere had climbed to 48% above pre-industrial levels by 2020. Rising global temperature is not the only implications of the climate change, but also it will contribute toward extreme weather, altering biodiversity and ecosystems, increase sea level, and many other factors. So most of the scientists agree that human attitude and actions, specifically the burning of fossil fuels and the subsequent amount of greenhouse gases released in the atmosphere, has contributed to this warming effect. According to Church et al. In 2013, rising water goes to the oceans from glaciers and ice caps as temperature increases and ice melts, while ocean water warms and expands in capacity. So this variety of factors has contributed to an average global sea level rise of 4 to 8 inches in the last century. For example, we can see Kilimanjaro snows, which also disappeared by more than 80% since 1912. Other than that, glaciers in India's Gahwal Himalaya are decelerating at such a fast rate that scientists forecast most northern and northeastern Himalayan glaciers will be disappeared by 2035. And Arctic sea ice has declined by around 10% in the last 3 decades, as it has shown rapidly over the last century. We are aware that climate change happened due to various factors, and one of the major drivers of it is because of the emissions of greenhouse gas that being trapped in atmosphere, and China is partially responsible for global climate change that happened rapidly. Okay. For the second factor is that greenhouse gas emission contributes to air pollution. Greenhouse gas emissions from fossil fuels such as carbon dioxide, ozone, and particulate matter not just influence the climate, but also pollute the air in the environment, resulting in a slew of public health issues. So the combustion of fossil fuels, particularly diesel, gasoline, and coal, is the main source of surface ozone and fine particulate matters. Both have been associated with increased death worldwide and illness. Other than that, smoke and soot are both general forms of pollutants in the environment. So burning fossil fuel will release a hazardous pollutants when react with sun and start forming a smoke, while soot is made from fine particulate matter of mud, smoke, chemicals, or dirt that will be exist in the atmosphere as gas or solids. So smoke and soot have similar sources, which both come from automobiles, vehicles, industries, power plant, incinerators, and others that burns fossil fuels like coal, gas, or natural gas. China struggles with extremely poor air pollution as the world's largest major contributor to greenhouse gas emissions in past years. For example, capital city of China, Beijing, with a population of 21 million and sources of economy including manufacturing, construction, mining, agriculture, and others. So emission from vehicles and coal combustion for electricity generations are the primary sources of air pollution in Beijing, and quality of air in Beijing is also influenced by the manufacturing sector and rising population. Recently, incidents into November 2021, schools and highway in Beijing has been ordered to close because of the enormous pollution that happened caused by China increases in coal production. So thick haze that covered the northern China, reducing the visibility in certain areas which within less than 200 meters. So China stated that they have enhanced the coal production to 1 million tons daily in order to catch up with the energy shortage due to the factories being forced to close in the past months because of the COVID-19 restriction. So this shows that how China is heavily reliant on coal production as their source of energy to generate an imbalance in their economic growth, even though it will lead to negative consequences toward the environment and human population. For the third impact is that it will affect the human health. Greenhouse gas emissions have a negative influence on public health in two ways. So the first way is inhaling high levels of carbon dioxide damages people's respiratory system, resulting in shortness in breath, headache, and even hallucination. While the second method is indirect and has something to do with climate change. Nevertheless, further increases in carbon emissions will contribute to global warming, altering rainfall amounts and patterns, and raising the frequency of extreme weather. According to Watt et al. In 2018, 157 million individuals were exposed to extreme temperature, including heat waves, and long-term exposure to excessive temperature raises the risk of respiratory and cardiovascular problems. A constant changing temperature has catastrophic consequences for all areas of human existence, exposing vulnerable communities to extreme weather events, disrupting communicable diseases strain, and threatening food security, drinkable water, and fresh water. Furthermore, greenhouse gas emissions that were released due to human activities will have an impact on the nutritional composition of basic crops like rice and grain. When carbon dioxide level twice relative to pre-industrial levels, an extra 175 million of individuals may be zinc insufficient, as well as 122 million may be protein insufficient. Numerous various climatic consequences could cause premature death, either directly or indirectly, or increase existing rates of early death due to starvation or preventable illnesses. Climate change and environmental factors could alter the geographic distribution of vector and rodent-borne illnesses such as dengue, malaria, West Nile, and chikungunya. So as stated by the World Health Organization, between the year 2030 and 2050, it predicts that climate change will cause roughly 250,000 fatalities. All of the diseases happen due to the hazardous gas emission releases by human activities, which later will cause a major environmental issues like climate change that will change every aspect of environment, and if humans are unable to adapt to the changes, it will lead to death and increase in illnesses.
There are two mitigation actions in China to reduce the impact of greenhouse gases. First, reduce non-carbon dioxide greenhouse gases emission. Sun and greenhouse indicate 30% of global warming is due to non-carbon dioxide emission, and more warming the atmosphere than carbon dioxide. But non-carbon dioxide have received less attention from the Chinese government and not set particular target to address it. Based on China 13 5-year plan, which is 2016 until 2020, has mentioned that China will control non-carbon dioxide. But a few policies have been issued. For example, such as coal methane emission. So in China, 14 5-year plan, which is 2020 and 2025, has shown mitigation effort will prioritize on non-carbon dioxide emission, especially in methane gases and hydrochlorofluorocarbon. For example, in the 2020 until 2025 period, Climate and Clean Air Coalition collaborate with the Institute of Environment and Sustainable Development in Agriculture and Chinese Academy of Agriculture Science create effective strategy to promote methane mitigation from manure management. As the result, Chinese Academy of Agriculture Science found that by improving the feed of livestock by editing dietary supplement, make the digestion of process produce less methane emission from animal manure. Other than that, Taiwan started to reduce their organic matter on waste by practice waste classification, which can reduce methane emission from landfill. Taiwan has made mandatory waste separation at sources, which is provide a free recycling service at resident area. As the result, the recycle rate at Taiwan around 55% due to has effective recycling system. Moreover, around 15% of landfill in China do not install a landfill gas collection system, which will collect around 60 until 19% of methane gases from the landfill to produce electricity. So in 14 5-year plan, the Chinese government wants to strengthen methane emission control and recycling in the oil and gas, waste and other sectors. Next mitigation action is decarbonizing energy industry. The energy industry is a major source of greenhouse gases emission in China, which is almost 90%. So China has improved their effort in energy conservation and emission reduction from energy industry in order to create more clean energy and safe for environment and humans. In July 2021, China has launched a national carbon emission trading scheme, which firstly focusing on energy industry emission in order to reduce their emission. This is because, according to Peking University study in 2017, around 40% of energy industry had produced carbon dioxide and emit more than 26,000 tons of carbon dioxide per year. To ensure energy industry safely control their carbon emission within the requirement that stated in emission trading scheme, the Chinese government and other stakeholders has promoted energy efficiency practice, has used low carbon technology and promote renewable energy. For instance, the World Bank was invest on low carbon city project in Shenzhen, China, to build low carbon technology at 67 buildings. As the result, this technology able to save the energy and reduce carbon emission, which is around 189,946 tons annually. Next, the coal-fired power plant emit more greenhouse gases per unit of energy produced than any other type of power station. So the Chinese government cut back on planning coal power project abroad from the Belt and Road Initiative and stop funding any coal project. In which China has switched to renewable energy such as wind and solar power instead of fossil fuel, and use low carbon technology to decarbonize energy production and produce clean energy. Conclusion regarding on greenhouse gases in China is the effort of China in their 14th five-year plan to reduce both greenhouse gases, which is carbon dioxide and non-carbon dioxide, are a great step to achieve Paris Agreement goal and able to solve all impact from greenhouse gas emission. For a weakness and failure of China 13th five-year plan, China has strengthened their plan in 14th five-year plan by establishing specific policy, technology and standard system regarding on greenhouse gases in every kind of industry such as agriculture and energy. China also reviewed their policy with other major emitters to make new change on issue of greenhouse gases such as United States and China established working group on enhanced climate action. As the result, both countries has action on policy and technology and sharing their experience on program and project to address greenhouse gases at every sector.